The observation deck of the Viridian Dawn hummed with the quiet efficiency of a dozen alien species conducting their daily routines. Nira stood at the viewport, her crystalline eyes reflecting the blue marble of Earth below. As a Keltharian xenobiologist, she had studied thousands of species across the galaxy, but humanity continued to fascinate her in ways she couldn't quite articulate. Administrator Nira, a soft voice chirped behind her. She turned to find Kor, her young research assistant, clutching a datapad against his fur-covered chest. The Moran cub, barely into his third cycle, had joined her team only 2 lunar periods ago, eager and curious about everything. Yes, Kor? The human delegation has arrived. They're requesting permission to board. His whiskers twitched nervously. They say they've brought gifts? Nira's translator implant picked up the uncertainty in his tone. Gifts were uncommon in official diplomatic exchanges, especially from a species as recently inducted into the Galactic Council as humanity. She straightened her robes and nodded. Have them escorted to Conference Room 7, and Kor, bring your appetite. The young Moran's eyes widened in confusion, but he scurried off to relay the message. 20 minutes later, Nira and Kor stood across from 3 humans in the sterile white conference room. The lead diplomat, a woman named Sarah Chen, smiled warmly, an expression that still unnerved many council species with its display of teeth. Administrator Nira, thank you for receiving us, Sarah said, gesturing to the containers her colleagues were unpacking. We've noticed that most species in the council subsist on nutrient paste and synthetic proteins. Efficient, certainly, but we thought you might enjoy experiencing something different. Kor leaned toward Nira and whispered, "What are those colorful objects?" "I believe," Nira said slowly, "those are what humans call fruits, reproductive bodies of their planet's flora." Sarah laughed, another human gesture that took getting used to. "That's technically correct, but trust me, they're much more interesting than that description suggests." She lifted a spherical orange object. "This is an orange. And this," she held up something red and glossy, "is an apple. We've brought a selection from different regions of Earth." Nira studied the arrangements with scientific interest. The colors were vibrant, far more so than anything she'd encountered on other worlds. The scents, even through her filtered breathing apparatus, were intoxicating and complex. "You eat these directly?" Kor asked, his voice small with disbelief. "Without processing? Without purification?" "That's right," Sarah's colleague, a man named James, replied. He picked up a yellow curved object and peeled back its covering. "This is a banana. Here, try it." Kor looked to Nira for permission. She nodded encouragingly, her own curiosity piqued. The young Moran approached cautiously, took the offered fruit in his small paws and sniffed it thoroughly. Then, with the scientific dedication Nira had trained into him, he took a small bite. The change was instantaneous. Kor's eyes went wide, wider than Nira had ever seen them. His pupils dilated to full moons, and his whiskers shot forward in what she recognized as extreme pleasure response. He froze completely, the half-eaten banana trembling in his grasp. "Kor?" Nira stepped forward in concern. "Are you experiencing distress?" The young Moran slowly turned to her, and his voice came out as a breathless whisper. "Administrator, it's sweet and soft, and it has texture. There are layers of taste. It changes as I chew it." "How is this possible?" Sarah grinned. "That's nothing. Try this." She sliced an apple into pieces, revealing the white flesh inside, and offered one to Nira. Nira had not risen to her position by being timid. She accepted the slice and bit into it decisively. The crunch surprised her first. Her people's food never made sounds. Then came the juice, cool and sweet and tart all at once, flooding her sensory receptors with more information than she'd thought possible from a single food source. The flavor evolved on her tongue, revealing notes of sweetness, acidity, and something indefinably fresh. Her mandibles clicked involuntarily, a Keltharian expression of profound pleasure. "By the 7 suns," she breathed. "This is extraordinary. Wait until you try a mango," James said, cutting into a golden orange fruit that released an aroma so intense Kor actually whimpered. "Or a strawberry. Or a pineapple." For the next hour, the conference room transformed into something unprecedented in council history. A genuine cultural exchange built not on treaties or trade agreements, but on pure, simple joy. Kor sampled grapes and giggled at how they burst in his mouth. Nira discovered the complex sweetness of a peach, its juice dripping down her chin in a way that would have been undignified if she'd cared at all. "Why?" Nira finally asked, setting down the remains of what Sarah had called a blood orange. "Why does your planet produce such incredible variety? Such complexity?" Sarah's expression grew thoughtful. "Earth is dulled and violent. And generous. Our evolution didn't happen in controlled environments or optimized conditions. Life on our world had to fight, adapt, and seduce. These fruits," she gestured at the colorful array, "they're the result of millions of years of plants learning to attract animals, to make creatures want to spread their seeds. They're weapons of beauty in the war of survival." "Weapons," Kor repeated softly, clutching a handful of blueberries like precious gems. "These are weapons?" "The best kind," James said. "The kind that make you want to come back for more." Nira understood then with the clarity that came from true insight why humanity had made such waves since joining the Council. They came from a world that didn't just sustain life, it celebrated it, rewarded it with pleasure and variety and endless surprise. The humans themselves were fruits of that philosophy. Complex, vibrant, sometimes overwhelming, but impossible to ignore once you'd had a taste. "You know," she said slowly, "the Council's nutrition protocols haven't been updated in 3,000 years. Sarah's smile could have lit the room. "Would you like to help us change that?" Kor, his face stained with the juice of a dozen different fruits, his eyes still wide with wonder, looked up at his mentor and nodded vigorously. Nira clicked her mandibles in what humans would learn to recognize as laughter. "I believe we would. After all, it would be a terrible waste for the galaxy to never know what they've been missing." As the Viridian Dawn continued its orbit around Earth, 3 more Council ships requested permission to dock. Word had spread fast. The humans, it seemed, were bringing more fruit. The galaxy would never taste the same again.